The FBI is now trying to resolve a standoff at several federal buildings in eastern Oregon. An armed militia group is protesting a judge's ruling to send 2 ranchers to prison.
The incident has sparked ongoing debates about anti-government ideology and extremism. John Blackstone has the latest.
At the occupied compound, protesters are setting up camp and settling in for the long haul. Ammon Bundy is leading the occupation. He says they're fighting back against the government's expansion of the over 100-year-old federal wildlife refuge at the expense of local ranchers.
There's been some tremendous abuses. They've used the courts to prosecute and to basically take the land and resources away from the people.
Back in 2014, Bundy's father, Cliven, was embroiled in a dispute with federal officials over grazing rights on federal land in Nevada. That escalated into an armed confrontation. This group set up camp Saturday after a march in a nearby town in support of 2 ranchers.
Go Hammond! Yeah!
Dwight Hammond and his son Stephen were convicted of setting fires on federal land in 2001 and served jail time. They say it wasn't arson, but controlled burns to protect their property. In October, a judge added 4 more years to their sentence.
It just seems like a little overreach for having burned 127 acres.
In a statement, the Hammond's attorney reports they're not associated with Bundy's group, saying neither Ammon Bundy nor anyone within his group or organization speak for the Hammond family. But protesters say they plan to stay put until all local ranchers reclaim land they allege was stolen by the U.S. government years ago. John Blackstone, CBS News, Burns, Oregon.
Washington Post reporter Amber Phillips is with us now. Amber, thanks for being here. You've covered the Bundy family's past standoffs and the federal land issues surrounding these cases. We heard John's report that there is a rationale for why these guys have decided to do this. Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah, so what happened was during this peaceful protest, in rural Oregon, the splinter group of people, very small section of these hundreds of peaceful protesters, decided that marching in support of these 2 Oregon ranchers was not enough, and that they were going to go out of their way and drive 30 miles, in the snow in Oregon to physically take over this federal outpost as the best I can assess is some sort of sign of physical strength to prove their point that they feel the federal government is overreaching into their lives out west.
But Amber, what ultimately are the Bundys and this armed militia trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, so with the caveat that it's hard to tell because I'm not in their heads, and they've really been giving vague answers to the media out there, frankly. My best understanding is that this group of people are so frustrated with the federal government right now for a variety of reasons, a litany of reasons. Tensions between ranchers and the federal government are as old as Americans going out west. But this particular group of people, I think, really feel left behind by the government economically, politically, physically. They're frustrated that the government has owned for decades now large parts of land that they rely on for their livelihood. It's just a general sense of frustration, and this is a physical manifestation of that.
Well, so the question, I guess, Amber, is the Bundy family and its supporters say it's just a small group compared to most of the ranchers. So this division that's existed with that group, I mean, are we expecting to see more people go to that splinter group side?
I'm not clear. That is the big question. I think you're absolutely right to ask that. When the Bundy standoff happened, I spoke with the Nevada Cattlemen's Association, a longtime allies of ranchers out in Nevada, who they're not shy of criticizing the federal government and what they say is overreach. They were very critical of the Bundy clan, of taking up arms against the government. This group and the majority of ranchers out west see this as a very extreme reaction. That being said, the federal government during the Bundy standoff was surprised how many people traveled across country with their guns to point them at federal officials in the desert in Nevada. And so I think the federal government is treading very carefully right now in Oregon because they're not sure if this is sort of picking up as a more mainstream sentiment among people out west.
Yeah, and Amber, let me ask you as a reporter, I've seen some reports now that, as you point out rightly, back in 2014 with the Cliven Bundy incident, it grew to be something very, very big, something that started out fairly small. In this case, it's the same way. Is it your sense that this group is trying to garner some media attention and that way to drive that same kind of sentiment that we saw back in 2014?
It's certainly possible. You know, I spoke with Cliven Bundy a year after the incident in April 2014. He said, hey, I have not been punished by the federal government. My cattle are still grazing on federal land that he claims is his. I haven't had to pay grazing fees. He said, I feel pretty darn emboldened right now. And I would argue that his family and his sons feel the same way, whether it's media attention or whether it's just having absolutely no retaliation or punishment from physically pointing guns at federal officials to get their way. We could be seeing that play out right now in Oregon again.
Amber Phillips for us in Washington. Amber, thank you so much.
Thank you.